What I thought I would do this month is to do a very simple landscape for absolute beginners using very simple techniques and very simple materials. So these are the materials that you're going to be using. Just a jam jar. Everybody can grab one of those. 4 brushes, synthetic. They don't need to be sable. Good quality synthetic though. A big one, a 12, a 6, a little one, maybe a 1, and a number 1 rigger, which has lovely long bristles, and you get a beautiful fine line with this particular brush. Then we'll just need a pencil, and we're just going to use 2 colours. Now these are student watercolours, nothing too fancy, just ultramarine blue and light red. You can't read that, I'll just scrape that off. And it's nothing like a red, it's actually like a terracotta colour. And it's a very strong colour, so you do have to be careful how you use it. A nice palette with lots of lovely big wells in there. A bit of tester paper, but to make sure it's the same paper that what you're painting on, that's very important. And we're going to just draw a horizon line, and you can see I'm doing this a third of the way up the paper, because to do it a half away is actually quite poor composition. And then we're going to put like a peanut-sized blob of paint into the middle of the palette so that we've got 6 nice big wells to mix our colours. Okay, then using your big brush, and I've got my little tester ready, just put 2 or 3 blobs of water into one of the wells. So you've got a nice little pool of water there, and then I'm just going to mix some of the blue on its own. So this is going to be one of the colours for the sky basically. Let's just try that on this tester. Now paint will dry lighter, so it needs to be slightly darker on your tester. So I'll put a bit more in. That will be fine. And then the second colour, same again, put a couple of blobs of water into the next well. And I'm going to mix like a stormy, cloudy colour, and by mixing these 2 colours together. So I'm going to put my blue in first, and it needs to be sort of single cream consistency. It needs to be a little bit thicker. And I'm going to add a little bit of the light red to that. Now you can see it's like a terracotta. Now that tiny bit has changed that colour already. I'll show you, to a navy blue. Now you could use that for the cloud colours, but I'm just going to go a little bit more of a pinky grey. That will probably be a very grey now. Yeah, a bit too grey, maybe just a little bit more of the red. And then, as they say, we're cooking on gas. That looks great. Okay. So this is the guy who uses these 2 colours quite a lot. He's called Raymond Campbell Smith. Fantastic skies. And I'll just show you some of the pictures to demonstrate what these 2 colours do. They separate as they're drying, and the red, comes out like a pinky glow. And you can see here, you get some really lovely effects. And Ray Campbell Smith, don't even know whether you can still get this book. And this is the picture that we're going to be doing. Or, well, not. It's just very, very simple version, just with a church, no real foreground. But that's the idea. So as I say, I don't know if that book's still available, but it's been a good book for me to actually use on occasions. So now I'm going to mix up 2 colours of just grey. I'm going to do a very, very thin grey and a thicker one. Same 2 colours, just different proportions. I'm going to put a bit more blue in here because I've run out. Put some of that in. Get it nice and watery. And a little bit of the red. Let's have a look at that. And that's not light enough. Now to make something lighter, you don't add white. A watercolourist wouldn't do that, a purist. You just add water. So add some more water until you get something really pale. And I'm going to add a little bit more water, and that should be fine. And then the next one, same sort of shade, but just thicker, so just less water. Okay, let's just try that. That should be fine. Okay, so now we're going to wet the sky area thoroughly with water, clean water. Mine's a bit dirty, but actually that's quite good because you can see where I'm putting that. We don't want any dry bits at all, and you're only wetting above the pencil line. And then when you get to the pencil line, be really careful so that you've got a nice straight line there. So do that and then just fill in any dry bits above it. Once you've done that, you need to get your blue, and then you need to, not carefully, plonk, let's use that word of the day, plonk some blue on there because we're going to tip the board. And this is what they call wetting wet, so you're putting wet paint onto wet paper. And then tip it left, right, up, down, take off any dribbles until you get something that you're happy with. Now just watch for paint, see, collecting under there, under the tape at the edge. Don't let things collect, so take off any dribbles and then we'll just run that back in to the rest of the picture. Now I'm going to put on those dark cloudy colours. You have to remember which colour is which here, the thicker one, the one that you made at the beginning, and then I'm just going to put some clouds in. I'm not going to be too careful about where they go because once again we're going to tip this. And hopefully as it dries, some of the pink or the red will just come out as just a bit of a rosy glow. That's the idea. Give that a tip now. Backwards and forwards, up and down. Like that. Okay. And if it's still wet, you can apply a little bit more, but don't be tempted to do that if it's beginning to dry. If it's beginning to dry, just leave it and let it do its own thing. That's when weird things will start to happen. Okay, give that a good tip until you've got something that you're happy with. And then I dried that with a hairdryer eventually, but I don't like those blobs, but hey ho, we'll just have to live with those. And you can see the pink is just coming out ever so slightly on there. So now, what I want to do now is to actually paint in the hills. So we're going to do 3 rows of hills or land. So we're going to start off with the highest hills, but what we're doing is we're painting all the way down to the horizon. And what you're not doing is doing like a little outline all the way along the picture. You're actually finishing a section, a whole section, so maybe 2 or 3 centimetres, finishing that, not being tempted to go back, and you've always got a puddle of paint at the end of that area. Can you see that? So essentially you're pushing a puddle of paint along. Okay? And you never let that paint run out, otherwise you'd get streaks. Okay, so always leave that little puddle, reload your brush, carry on, think about what shapes you want. You could do a pencil line first, but you might not be able to get rid of that, so I tend to just make it up. Now I'm doing that around about 2/3 of the way across, and then with a rigger I'm just going to put the church in. So you just put 3 lines, one on the left, one across the top, one down the right, a little one in the middle. It's only very basic, just to give you an idea. And then the bit of the roof across here. And then with a slightly bigger brush, you've got plenty of paint still there in that puddle to actually fill that area in. Like that. And then carry on. Reload your brush. Don't let that puddle run out. And continue. Now then when you get near the end, you've got plenty of paint there and you know you can just drag that out. That needs to be dried with a hairdryer now. And then we're going to do the second row of hills on top of that. Now you'd think that we're going to make a slightly darker colour paint for that, but we're not. I'm using exactly the same mixture of paint as we used for those background hills. It's just that it's 2 layers of paint thick. So obviously it's going to look darker. So I haven't used that 4th colour. I'm still using the same mixture as I used for those background hills. Exactly the same method. Push that puddle of paint along. Keep it going. Take your time. And then just take it to the end. And then once that's dry, with the darkest colour and a very, very small brush, you're just going to put in some little bits of, I don't know, shrubbery, trees, just along that bottom edge. I'm just moving along with it so you can see how that's coming along. Keep it going all the way across. And if you've got any little funny wobbly bits, this is where you can really straighten your horizon beautifully. And then that needs to be dried. And now you've got 3 shades. You've got what they call tonal perspective, 1, 2 and 3. Right, well this bit we need to actually reflect the clouds for the water. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. You're going to wet all this bottom area here, leave a little dry line between the horizon. Can you see I'm not going quite up to it there? Wet it thoroughly and do exactly the same thing as you did with the sky. So you put your blue on first, take any dribbles off, like that. I'm doing it slightly more linear this time, thinking about ripples in the water. And then I'm going to put on the dark cloud colour, sort of to correspond with where they are in the sky, so they will be reflecting. And then with a little brush, you can do little reflections of the castle, of the church or whatever it is, little bits of the hills, as long as the paper's still wet. You've not allowed the paper to dry at all. All this has been done while it's wet. Take it all the way over. Okay. Now I'm just dragging some of this wet paint, still wet, just in lines to give a little bit of movement, so you can use some of your darker paint that's left in your palette, or you can just drag some of the paint out. So you could see some of these lines here to create ripples, really. I'm not going to do too many, but you'll get the idea. I'm just looking at the mount. That looks like halfway the horizon there, which is not great, so it was going to have to move up. That looks a lot better. And you can also get white lines by lifting the paint out. So if you just get a damp brush, move it backwards and forwards until you see the paint move, and then take off with a tissue. So you're just lifting off the paint because these colours are non-staining. Once again, I'm not going to put a lot in, but this will just show you how to do it. So you should just have a little practice. And you're using some techniques here that you'll use over and over again, no matter how complicated your picture is. Now, dry brushing, this is the final technique I'm going to show you. You get a brush, you put it in some paint, and then you scrape most of it off, hence the term dry brush. And then it's as though you're picking a brush up off the table without any fingers underneath. So if you've got pick it up, so there's no fingers underneath, and you're keeping it flat, and you're basically skimming it over the texture of the paper. And you're better to actually start this at the side. So if you were to make a big blob, it doesn't matter so much, you could actually cut that bit off or get a mount on it and it would be cropped off. And as you come into the centre, you can see how this dry brushing will give you a little bit of a twinkle. Okay, put a little bit more on this side, test it first, come in from the left, and then just drag until the paint runs out. And it just gives you a bit of movement. Dry brushing is great for all sorts of things. It's good for bark on trees, but brilliant for water as well. And then if you want, you can add some little birds. If you're brave, use your rigger, test it first, do some little experiments on your paper, and then I'm just going to put a few around the church here. Just little V's. Some are quite steep V's, some are a little bit more gentle. Some are slightly smaller than others. And they always say sort of make an odd number, you know, do 3, 5, 7, and just a few little ones there, and actually a few little dots maybe even. And there you go. It's a very simple landscape, but using wet in wet, wet on dry, dry brushing and lifting out. 2 colours, pretty simple. Have a go, see how you get on, and yeah, happy painting.